Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And today, once again, we are going through the anti-migration protests, where a whole bunch of patriotic Brits consistently come out and have consistently come out over the past 4 or 5 weeks, because people are frankly fed up of having to pay for illegal migrants to get put into hotels. Whether they be 2-star or 5-star, it does not matter. People generally want them deported. Even the Green voters are generally on the side of that. And pictures on the screen that you are seeing are from a couple of examples of these protests that have only grown over the past few weeks. One in Dudley, there was another, to be honest, best I can say is somewhere else. It's quite hard to tell where this is, because unfortunately the tweet doesn't say where it is. I can't find anyone saying where this particular place is, and I can't read the sign in the background. But other places I heard this weekend were Norwich, Epping again obviously, Canary Wharf had some. Weekends tend to be when all these protests come out, for one very good reason. All these people work and are taxpayers, hence they're very, very annoyed about the state of the country and the fact that, well, not just hotels, but houses of multiple occupancy are now being used for illegal migrants. They're kicking out single mothers and veterans to do that as well, by the way. But this video is all about symbolism and how if you are a patriotic Brit and, well, frankly near one of these hotels, here is something small but meaningful you can do. So Labour Council left Palestine flags up while removing Union Jacks. Birmingham City Council's plan to remove hundreds of Union Jacks and St George's flags have shone a light on community tensions in England's second city. Because why would they take down Union Jacks and St George's flags but keep up foreign flags like Palestine's? Given we are, of course, in Britain and, well, in Birmingham's case, in England, and the council is supposed to literally represent that country and those people, and more specifically the people in Birmingham. So the Birmingham Council has been accused of double standards, or two-tier ruling, I guess, claiming to be unable to take down Palestine flags while removing English ones. A row erupted after residents put up hundreds of Union Jacks and St George's flags on lampposts in a patriotic outpouring over the past fortnight. The council issued a statement saying flags and other attachments, such as bunting and advertising, could be putting lives at risk and would take them down. I know it's going to be ridiculous risk assessment bureaucracy of, if a flag flies off and manages to get itself around a 2-year-old's neck, that's a death, and then that's on us, the council, for not removing it. But let's be real, cable ties are pretty damn strong, and flags are absolutely everywhere. Whenever I'm driving through Wales, pretty much every caravan park has a few flags. When we get 80-mile-an-hour winds, do you know what comes off? The flag itself doesn't, but it gets ripped to shreds. You will be fine with flags up on lampposts, let's not be ridiculous. The council issued a statement saying flags and other... I've read that. Opposition councillors pointed out that Palestine flags have been allowed to remain up for at least a year. Robert Alden, the leader of the Conservative group, said council bosses had told him maintenance teams would only deal with Palestine flags if they had a police escort. It would also mean changing shift times so the flags were taken down at a time that would not draw public attention. So they're even having to do this in secret because people are just so fed up with effectively knowing that their country comes last. I mean, I saw my parents this weekend and I had to explain to them the Chagos deal. And they still don't believe that that's real. They just think that there has to be some logical reason to giving the Chagos Islands to Mauritius and paying them for it. And I have to keep explaining to them, no, it's literally just Keir Starmer on human rights lawyer brain and thinking international law says so, therefore you have to do it. It's the same with this. A lot of people in Labour are literally just, well, that's what the international order says, therefore it must go through. It's ridiculous. Though, to be fair, I really don't have an issue with this Tory councillor. Over the last couple of years, the council has been clear that they haven't taken Palestine flags down quickly, and they would only take them down with a police escort because they originally tried taking them down and there was some trouble. Alden said in some parts of the city they've been up for over a year. Oh, so that's interesting, so I actually misunderstood that. The Brits basically follow procedure. It appears to be the Gaza supporters, I guess we'll call them, who are effectively telling the monopoly on violence from the state that no, you can't do that, that represents us. which again just goes round back to my point anyway of, well, Britain and England feel like they're at the bottom of the pecking order and they're getting fed up with it. The English and Union flags have been put up for a couple of weeks and the council has decided that flags are dangerous and shouldn't be on lampposts. The council is bankrupt, so the idea that they would focus on this is farcical. They should not take down our national flags. The St George's Cross and Union flag should be able to bring shared pride for all communities across the city. But it doesn't, does it? That is a big problem, isn't it? Anyway, the council tried to say that they've been removing Palestine flags. It's not about flags, but about unauthorised attachments. Anyway, this fell on deaf ears because Lee Anderson of Reform UK called it a disgrace and shows utter contempt for British people. The Times have thankfully told us that nearly a third of Birmingham's residents are Muslim. That's relevant. The flags have been put up in predominantly white British suburbs in the southwest of Birmingham by a group of residents called the Worley Warriors, which has raised more than £4,800 through a crowdfunding website. It says it aims to show Birmingham and the rest of the country how proud we are of the history, freedoms and achievements. Yeah, patriotic guys. I completely agree with what they're doing. Critics claim that the St George's flag were put up to make people feel unwelcome and uncomfortable, and linked it to the rise of right-wing populism. In response to this, they're doing the exact thing that I would expect and want them to do. Thank goodness. In the Patrick Christie's Appreciation group, they have post about Operation Raising the Colours, which is underway across the United Kingdom. Councils have declared war against St George's and Union Jack flags. Patriots across the country are now placing flags everywhere. Patriot groups will be out overnight placing more throughout the country. Appeasement is over, and there are plenty of pictures of just literally ordinary people throwing up Union Jack, St George's crosses. It's mostly in England because that's where most of the hotels are, but, well, there were protests in Wales as well, but we'll get into that. And this is exactly the reaction that I would expect and want, because this is an incredibly peaceful and apparently disruptive to the council way of showing support for the country, and obviously is in reaction to massive government failures that have let in millions of people into the country and is putting up illegal migrants into hotels as well. Tens of thousands of them. Total number probably close to 200 to 300,000. It's absolutely crazy, and obviously the hotels are getting full and people are getting mad at it, and so they're trying to find other places to put them, missing the whole point, which is that we want them deported. That is the popular position. That is why Reform are over 10 points ahead in pretty much every poll. And while you may naturally assume that this is basically only happening in majority white areas anyway, no, that's not quite the case, because the clip you are seeing now was recorded in Tower Hamlets, which is rather infamous pretty much throughout the country for having a large Bangladeshi population. I think it's 35% of the population there and makes up about 81,000 people. And all the great British patriots have come out with ladders, with flags, to put them up, to let them know which country we are all in and which country we should all be supporting, especially if you are living here on a permanent basis. When it comes to tourists, who cares? When it comes to people living here permanently, yep, you're going to see St George's flags and you are going to see Union Jacks. Oddly enough, I don't see it as a sign of being unwelcoming to people who actually want to be here. I see it as a reassertion of the British identity and making sure that people who are here to effectively take the mickey and take our money and take advantage know that, well, effectively, time is running out and you are going to be deported. Because, let's face it, pretty much every major party is having an arms race to the right when it comes to immigration, and every single one wants to seem like the most serious when it comes to deporting people, given it's an incredibly popular position. There were other areas of London where this was happening, not exactly sure where in London this is, but I think it's worth noting that, again, it's not just a racial thing. This is a black guy helping put up a Union Jack. And so all the calls and people rubbing their hands together hoping for a race war, as far as I can tell, we're not going to get one. If we do have large-scale unrest, I don't see it being along racial lines. And, well, what else is there to say? It just makes me happy to see this. Obviously, Birmingham were slapping up flags after being told that they're going to be taken down. People just aren't taking notice, and I don't think they should. Keep putting up the flags. Hell, I've got one. If I I don't think I know of any hotels in the vicinity, but if I do, I'll be putting it up. Then again, where I live in Wales actually does have a fair amount of flagpoles already. It's not one of those places that really needs this. But hell, every little helps here. Anyway, Canary Wharf obviously had some of these flags given its, well, massive and constantly in the news for the past couple of weeks, especially after one of the illegal immigrants managed to make his way into a poor blind girl's home, who then allegedly took out a meat cleaver, which people are claiming she never actually owned, to allegedly attack security guards at the hotel. I'm going to have to wait for court on that one. It sounds like a bit of a confusing, if understandable, story. But it's just good to see, again, clips like this driving down suburbs. I think this is somewhere in Birmingham, but it doesn't really matter. This seems to be happening everywhere. And just seeing the flags being flown, if nothing else, as a reminder and a symbol that your countrymen do care and your countrymen want things to change. That is the entire point of this. And obviously, if it's not polyester or cloth flags being put up on lampposts, people are getting a bit creative with how they show their patriotism. Yeah, for those in America who've never been to Britain, we have these things called mini roundabouts, and they all basically look like a white circle in the middle of the road. And as I say, some patriots got creative, got some deep red paint and turned it into a bit of a St. George's cross. What the police are doing there, basically just telling him to stop, I don't know. I'm not sure if he'd get arrested for this. He probably should. I think this comes under vandalism, and obviously as a YouTube channel I can't condone this type of vandalism. However, when it comes to the flag policy, that's obviously not vandalism, and obviously it's just being used as an excuse by the councils to take down the flags because they don't like them. As was pointed out by the Tory councillor, why are the Palestine flags up all the time then? Clearly it's not breaking any laws, unless we have this two-tier system we've been going on about for some time. Anyway, it won't be surprising to anyone that the absolutely crazy left-wingers on Twitter were not happy with this. I'm literally just giving you one example. Of Narinder Kaur saying, going around raising flags in what's apparently called Operation Raise the Colours, intentionally in front of Turkish barbers and Chinese takeaways where they probably got a fresh trim and a Chinese before heading home. Thick AF. Well, that's all very well and good, and certainly a point you could raise, but, I mean, realistically, the problem people have with migration largely at the moment is illegals and criminals. Now, that Turkish barber may very well be a front for money laundering, and I would not be shocked if these people want them to be investigated. However, when it comes to the Chinese takeaway, people love a Chinese takeaway. Anyway, there were a few politicians showing their faces at these protests. Lee Anderson had an interview at Canary Wharf, given that he was one of the first politicians to point out it was being used as a migrant hotel. Robert Jenrick showed his face over at Epping when they were having yet another protest, because why wouldn't they? They found out that there was a second sexual predator in the hotel, alleged I should say, I suppose. Lots of happy people, lots of happy faces, as, well, it really does seem like they are winning. And a couple of things on this. One thing I do find funny is that Epping has largely been organised, though I think it's grown from this, but originally organised by people in Homeland who, to be fair to them, have done quite well. You know, ignoring all my issues with the Homeland Party, they have done good here. Much more good than cleaning off graffiti off nice rocks, which I appreciate too. But I do find it funny that no one in the mainstream has tried to link Jenrick to Homeland the way that they were doing it with Nigel Farage. So on that front, there needs to be a bit of a different angle of attack that's a bit less from the mainstream and comes, of course, again from Zia Yusuf, who seems to be the reform attack dog, as people have so named him. And I'm completely fine with that. Who asked, is this one of those migrant hotels you opened, Robert Jenrick, less than 3 years ago as immigration minister? You were boasting about how many hotels you were booking for illegal migrants. Staggeringly shameless, with the minister saying he's finding even more hotels. As he added on Tuesday, whenever this Sky article was written, Mrs Braverman and former Home Secretary Patel have both endeavoured to get more hotel rooms booked for migrants. More hotels have been coming online almost every month throughout this whole year. So Shiela Burrowes and her predecessor Patel were procuring more hotels. What I've done in my short tenure is wrap that up and procure even more. And yes, they're all now going about trying to celebrate these hotels being closed down. Shiela Burrowes was doing this as well, by the way.
For The second time now, in 2 weeks, hundreds of you, last time thousands of you, have taken to the streets to stand up for your country.
Yes, all very good stuff, and no doubt a lot of people do agree with that, and no doubt Shiela Burrowes is on the side of, yes, get all these people deported. It's a shame she didn't have that outlook 2 years ago when she was Home Secretary, but there we go. But, to make a bit of a different point from my perspective, Shiela Burrowes was doing her best to put these people in the hotels in the first place. In fact, when I've been covering the Altrincham protests at the Crest Court Hotel, which I know a fair bit about because of reasons, a little known fact that not many people did know was that, well, there were plans before that in Hale, which is a neighbouring town to Altrincham. In the address line, you actually put Hale then Altrincham. I know because I've seen it before. And there was a big harumph of the, especially local businesses in the area, as 100 asylum seekers were going to be put in the village. And we're talking about a village that has featured on Cheshire Housewives, by the way. This is a very nice area. And obviously local people were very angry about this, and so effectively what was supposed to be secret meeting was held that was just supposed to be for local businesses. Anyway, residents found out, and the hall ended up being effectively absolutely stuffed with people. A Green councillor was pretty much berated for being on the side of having to house them. Graham Brady drove all the way from London to make the meeting and effectively said, yeah, I didn't know about any of this. This was all done in secret and done over my head. However, I have been in contact with the Home Secretary, who obviously at the time was Shiela Burrowes, to effectively make sure that the asylum seekers who are going to the Hale Hotel were women and children, or at the very least families who obviously are not these fighting age males that everyone is worried about, understandably. But this is what was happening on the Shiela Burrowes, the very problem that she is now pretending to be on the other side of. Well, probably always was on the other side of, but, civil service and things like that. I have a bit more time for Shiela Burrowes than someone like Robert Jenrick, because Shiela was always a bit of a free radical. But it is quite funny at this point. Shiela Burrowes effectively is trying to distance herself from the Tories a bit, but won't then join Reform, partially because of the mistakes she's made in the past, and also partially from her, own perspective. Being in the Tory party is effectively a large part of her social life. So that's why this is happening. She's trying to distance herself but remain in the party and represent them in Parliament. I don't think she's expecting to keep her seat, is what I'm coming down to here. Anyway, Ben Leo of GB News was doing absolutely fantastic work, going out, doing a bit of vox popping and finding out more about the next step in housing illegal migrants, which is throwing them in HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, run by Cero, which is a multinational company, but at least it's based in Britain. Well, it may be based in Britain, but it is certainly providing services for a government that does not seem to like the British people. Anyway, Ben Leo asks an undercover officer about all this.
Called down.
No,
Say hello.
It's our area.
Oh, you do patrols?
Yeah.
Well, that's the first. We don't get that down south. Bobby's on the beat.
Welcome to the north.
That's good.
Right, have a good day.
All right, see you later. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? For the first time in my life, or at least since I was a very small child, we've had a police car, unmarked, roll down, say hello to us and ask what we're up to. Definitely don't get that down south, and you just wonder whether somebody has alerted the police that we're here asking questions. Very strange.
I mean, I have to say, when I lived in Manchester, obviously under GMP, I did see the odd patrol car, and I suppose the point of an unmarked police car is that you don't recognise straight away, at least, that it is an unmarked police car. You can tell if you look at the lights, though. But I'd actually have a different takeaway to Ben Leo here. It could well be that someone's alerted the police that GP News are snooping around. What I think is more likely is that, well, you've got a load of foreign people in homes of multiple occupancy. They seem to be causing a fair bit of issue in terms of the story of the poor 12-year-old who was raped by a couple of Afghanistanis in HMOs the other week. And it's entirely possible that they do need people on the beat effectively to make sure that, well, no crime's going on and you don't have even more scandals about the HMOs. Who knows? But the most interesting interview from Ben Leo comes from a Afghan illegal immigrant that he interviews who is living in an HMO. Here's what happens there.
In this example, an English lady and her 2 children were told to leave, and then the landlord, the person who owns the house, gets refugees in and more money. So English person is left with no house, and then we have
Children.
2 children. Yeah.
No house.
No,
Why?
because she lived in your house, and the landlord kicked them out. So you and others could
I'm
live.
going to hear children. No, this is not. This is lying.
Yeah, the first reaction of an illegal migrant who's here and been shacked up in a home with 4 others, whatever, pretty much like he doesn't believe that the Brits would kick out one of their own for him. He just doesn't believe it. This is the thing. A lot of you can't really blame the illegal migrants too much. Obviously, when they start committing crimes, deport them straight away, or just deport them straight away. What am I talking about? Deport them all, obviously. But a lot of them will literally just be thinking, oh, the reason that I'm being put in this house or hotel is because they have so many of them. A lot of them probably don't even realise that, no, actually, things kind of suck for your average person in Britain. That's why everyone's panicking, and why the political alignments are, well, so different to what they were a few years ago.
No.
No,
But
no.
before you guys moved
No,
in,
no. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4, 3, or 1 home for rent. Yeah. You have 1 refugee person, and then you have 1 children. You give children in this home or refugee. Yeah, of course you bury this children. This is lying.
And the interview goes on like this. Literally, why are you giving me, just a guy, a home over a child? And, well, the reason is because the government's doing everything they can to make sure that you are more comfortable than those kids. That's the end of it. And the guy seems to feel somewhat bad about it, to be honest with you, which, you know, I don't blame him for. But ultimately, this has been decades of failure from our governments. That's what this has culminated to. And it's what absolutely needs to change. And it is why we are seeing many flags, St. George's Cross and the Union Jack, all over Britain, and why I think we will be seeing it for some time to come. Because it is a declaration, a symbol that effectively we felt ignored, so we are going to throw up all these flags that you can't ignore, and that, as we know, you're planning to take them down. Just keep doing that and we'll keep putting them back up, I guess. This is on the more peaceful side of the reactions that the government is going to see. I think it's going to take something pretty big to have another Southport, because, you know, Southport could have been a hell of a lot worse, I'll put it that way, and it was in reaction to something that was beyond sickening. But there we go, we're in complicated times. Right, with that, that's everything I had for you for today. So, if you enjoy what I do, please do subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, great ways to help out the channel. And also, you can become a member or leave super chats, super thanks in any video or stream that I do. Tomorrow over on the Worcester Club, it's Tosh News. We'll be going through the news for the past couple of weeks. On Thursday, there will be more Hollow Knight, and on Saturday, Laughing at the Guardian with some whamming. Right, with that, everything I had for you for today. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.